Hello, my name is Darren Hood, and I will be speaking on the topic today of square pegs and round holes. Before I get started, of course, I wanted to express my thanks to Tony Mora for the opportunity to share with the recruiting world out there today. I love talking and teaching about UX, so I'm hoping that I'll be able to bring some value to everyone here today. By way of quick introduction, my name is Darren Hood. I am a manager for user experience in Bosch's automotive aftermarket division. I work out of Warren, Michigan, but I do, in addition to supporting the United States, I support EMEA. I also support Asia Pacific. And in the near future, I was told I'm going to be supporting India. So I've got 20 years in the field. I'm also an adjunct professor at Kent State University. I love everything to do with UX. I even do it when I'm not at work. And again, very happy to share with all of you here today. As we dive in, I want to start out talking about the burden of recruiting. But before I even get into this, I want to express a sentiment that I have with regard to not only this topic, but the burden that you guys have. I truly understand it. I interact with recruiters on a regular basis. I help as often as I can. I help screen in some cases. I recommend people on a regular basis. And I understand the challenge that the recruiters have in trying to find UX talent. I'm going to express that over the course of this presentation, but I wanted to make sure to mention that first. I am empathizing with you. You guys do not have an easy job, especially the way that things are going today. But that's it. Let's go ahead and dive in. This part is going to be something everybody knows, but I think it's critical to laying the foundation that we have for the talk here today. The burden of recruiting is going to encompass the following, as we all know. What is the position that needs to be filled? What are you recruiting for? This is the key part that, of course, everybody wants to know and get started with. What level of expertise is going to be sought? What are the qualifications for this position? Skill set, what is it? What kind of an educational background requirements will the company have? What are the need to have? So what does this person absolutely have to be able to do? What do they have to be able to deliver on? What are the nice to haves? What are those elements? What are those values that the person, they don't necessarily have to have it, but if they did, it'd be great. Everybody's going to feel that way to some extent with practically every position. What are the intangibles? Does the person have to be a citizen of the United States? Will work visas be required? Is relocation going to be a part of this? And will relocation be covered? What are the travel elements? Are we looking for somebody that's willing to travel 50% of the time? Do they have to travel at all? The intangibles are always going to come into play. And then lastly, what time frame is the company looking for? So again, these are all things that we know. I'm preaching to the choir now. I understand that, but I just want to make sure that you guys know that I understand it, and we'll go from here. This is the part that I want to refer to as the hold. When you're trying to fill a position, you're going to be concerned about the shape of that hole, and all of the things that we just listed here are determining what that shape is. Is it a round hole? Is it a square hole? Is it a parallelogram? Is it a star? What is the shape of the hole? Now, all these things said, people pretty much are going to have a frame of mind. Okay, well, we're recruiting for UX. Well, I was recruiting engineers. I was recruiting CAD designers. I was recruiting someone for the HR department. What's different about HR? I mean, it's just going to be work as usual, right? I'm going to look at somebody's resume. I'm going to look at somebody's cover letter. I'm going to look at their curriculum vitae. I'm going to do all the same things I normally do, right? No. The world of UX and recruiting for UX is quite different. And a lot of times they're very familiar with the other positions, and they've been recruiting for those positions for a very long time. But as you're about to find out, it's this UX recruiting. There, it's going to take a little bit more because people are going to have to become educated about not only what UX is, but about the personas of user experience professionals. And that's what's going to help you to avoid putting square pegs in round holes. Is going to help you to get through the requirements or the skill sets, rather, I should say, of those candidates that you're taking a look at. So in order to help us do this, in order for me to help you, I want to take you on a little bit of a journey. We're going to have a little bit of UX education here, if you will, and we're going to go through this quick timeline. Now, one of the reasons why a person is going to need to become educated on UX and understand the personas is because UX has not been around very long. Donald Norman, whose picture you see there on the bottom, was the person who first coined the phrase user experience while he was working for Apple. At that time, it was human machine interaction. It was HMI. There was internet was really just starting to come on the scene, and there wasn't very much UX work being done on the UX or on the internet initially. But Donald Norman was the one that got it started. Now, after Donald Norman got started, and shortly thereafter, when the internet boom took place, now the early stages of what we now know as UX came into play as information architecturing, and Richard Saul Wurman was the person who coined that phrase, and he's the father of information architecture essentially, and that's where a lot of the focus was. So the UX, again, as we knew it then, all about on the internet, all about information architecture, but everything was evolving. From there, back in those days, the creative agency world pretty much cornered the market on UX. Of course, yes, there was work being done, as we stated, with Don Norman back at Apple. However, a lot of the work that was being done on the internet and such was taking place where most of the designs were starting to happen with the corporations that were flocking to the internet to get their internet presence in place, and they were trusting in the agencies to get that done for them. So a lot of the vast majority of the UX related positions were held there. If you fast forward a few years and we come to about 2009, 2010, and work was being done just prior to that. NASA did some research. There were other companies that did research, and they discovered that for every dollar you invest in UX, you get a return on investment of anywhere from $2 to $100. So the corporations, the Bosches, the United Healthcares, the IBMs, the GEs of the world found out about this return on investment, and they became convinced, and they began to invest. So this in UX. So now this cornering of the market, which once took place with the creative agencies, that ended about 2009, 2010, round about that time frame. These other big standard corporations began to hire UX personnel. And so now we got a challenge because all these companies are now investing in UX, and you've got all these positions that need to be filled, but you don't have qualified people. And this is what creates the problem as it's arising for you guys now, because you have the challenge of filling these positions, dealing with all the recruitment, dealing with all of the qualifications that come up, looking at the experiences, looking at the skills, trying to really get into the weeds and find out how qualified somebody really is and where they really fit. Will they fit in your organization? What is their history like? What do they bring to the table? Who's the best person for the position that we have now? This is the challenge. And so now the reality of the shape of the peg and the shape of the whole, this is staring us in the face now. This is the huge challenge, and I do not envy you guys at all, because you guys, whether you are working for a headhunter, for a hiring agency, or you're working in the HR department for the company that's trying to fulfill these requisitions, you've got a huge challenge, because The last part of what I just mentioned on the previous slide, you have all of these positions, but you don't have enough qualified UX personnel to fill these positions. And so it is highly likely, and not only is it highly likely, it's happening. Now, a lot of people are filling these positions with folks that are grossly underqualified or unqualified, but because, as I'm going to mention this again later, but I'll mention it now, a lot of the companies, the corporations in particular, is where the biggest offenders who bring in these people don't understand what UX is. They are placing non-UX personnel over UX people. They are hiring people that don't know anything about UX. They're hiring people that have read a few articles and they know how to get through an interview, but they don't really have the background. They don't have the history. They don't have what it takes to really do the work. But the people that are supposed to be judging it don't know either. This is how you can avoid the scenario you see on the screen now. A lot of companies are doing just this. They're putting square pegs in round holes. And now the formula of for every dollar you invest in UX, you bring 2 to 100 return on your investment. That's gone out the window now, because the only way that that formula works is that you put round pegs based on what you see. Now you're putting round pegs in round holes. Now the team functions, you've got the right people in place, and the deliverables, the values that UX should and would bring can take place of a reality. But this has to be escaped, and it's going to come through education. The recruiters and the corporations. We'll start with the recruiters. That's why we're here, right? We'll start with the recruiters. We need to educate people on UX. The image that you're looking at now, I borrowed the middle of it, but I created this. There are some disciplines and deliverables and competencies that are not showing on this screen. There are a few just not included, but this will give you a great nice viewpoint of what's really going on in the UX world. As mentioned earlier, it started out as HMI with UX with Donald Norman. It quickly became, everything shifted toward information architecture. When I got involved full time, first time I was working on it was information architecture. And so the upper left-hand corner here, you see things like nomenclature, cognition, site maps, wayfinding, information foraging or management, elements of e-commerce came into play later. That's really all that was going on. But since that time, it has evolved into all of these things. Research is a big part of it now. And you have some people that have some of these skill sets, and then you have some people that may only have one or two, and that's fine. But the question is, what is the shape of the hole you're trying to fill, and the shape of the person you're trying to put in that hole is based on these skill sets. So you want to be really good at understanding what UX candidates are bringing to the table. You want to make sure they legitimately do have the skill that you're seeking. And then now it's time for analysis. It's time to check and see whether or not this person really is a fit. And then proceed to go to narrow down your candidates, and then start to go through the interviewing stages. So what I want to do from here, we don't have a whole lot of time. We've only got 30 minutes. I want to take some time here to just give you a few tips. I want to talk about a few things that I can share with you that will definitely help you if you apply it to whittle through the posers, as we call them. There's a lot of them out there. They'll go to, nothing against the places that offer some of these courses, but people will go through, they're trying to learn about UX quickly, and they'll go through some courses, never understanding that many of us who are, I guess what you can call first or second generation UX professionals, we had to evolve. You don't just become a UX, fill in the blank. You have to mature into that. You have to grow into it. It usually starts by going through some type of specialization, whether it's research, whether it is starting out and focusing on information architecture or anything of that sort. And then you begin to learn some of the other elements, such as strategy, some of the other things you saw on that last infographic, and you build from there. So what we want to do at this point, I would like to just again share these tips with you, and let's start. We're gonna go left or right here. Actually, let's go top down. We'll go top down. The first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you are seeking knowledge of deliverables. This is getting back into the earlier days, for the most part, of UX work, where people would focus on wireframes and sitemaps and creation of personas and style guides. And it's later that things like journey maps, if you happen to be reading this, journey maps, prototyping came along later. Pattern libraries were those pretty much were from the beginning, where you have some dependable types of design elements that you can, and layouts that you can design and use them for current and future projects, things of that nature. You always want to check a candidate to see how knowledgeable they are about deliverables, and seek out examples when and where you can. Tony's going to be talking about portfolios later on. Portfolios are indeed important, and I don't want to steal any of his thunder, but I will say this. When you have a candidate and that candidate cannot demonstrate any work that they've done, especially when they're saying that they have 10 years of experience or 5 years of experience, there's got to be some level of, or some volume of examples that person can show you to validate that they truly have the experience. I have personally evaluated talent before, where people would claim that they had X amount of experience, and then when you look at their portfolio, they had nothing. Now, at the same time, and again, I don't want to steal any of Tony's thunder, but I will say this. I've been victimized by the portfolios before, so I want to bring this up. There are times where people have a confidentiality element in association with their work. So in many cases, you'll have times where people simply do not have examples of some of their work because of the confidentiality that they were quote unquote sworn to. So examples might be minimal, but that should not eliminate a person from being able to show you something. And they should be able to talk about it. They should be able to tell you the story behind the work that was done and illustrate everything, so you can see that they have that broad knowledge, and confirm whether or not they really are bringing something to the table with regard to how well deliverables are in alignment with what you're seeking. So the position that you're hiring for, but no examples in many cases, it's going to mean that they simply don't know. They don't know. They don't have the experience. I was about to mention, I was trying to screen talent at one time for some hiring that we were doing. And someone said that they had 10 years of UX experience. And I looked at the person's resume, and I noticed something. I noticed that it was almost like they just inserted keywords. It really didn't have the experience. And then it was validated when I verified, when I went and looked at their portfolio, and they had 5 screenshots, all from the same project. Not only did they only have screenshots only from one project, they claimed to have 10 years of experience, and nothing that they offered matched that. And they weren't working for people where confidentiality was going to keep them from having examples down the road. So we eliminated that person from consideration. So when you should have access to a portfolio. It should be thorough, and the person should be able to speak to everything. So make sure you seek deliverable knowledge and validate it. Don't take a person's word for it. Seek it out. Number 2, we want to evaluate a person's competencies. Steve Somas wrote an article for UX Matters. Love UX Matters, by the way. And for those of you putting together a personal learning network for a UX, which I do recommend for you, you want to definitely tap into uxmatters.com. It's a great site to help you to learn more about user experience, which will help you to dialogue with candidates as well as assess them. But at any rate, Steve Somas wrote an article in 2007 on the 5 competencies of UX design, he mentioned information architecture, interaction design, usability, visual design, and prototype engineering. Now, at that time, we didn't have a whole lot going on from an HMI perspective, and tablets and hadn't even come on the horizon yet. Mobile design was just started, but a lot of what he mentions in the article is still true and is still good to look at. And you want to evaluate someone. How good are they with information architecture? Are they good with interaction design? And don't fall for the hype that says that there are no interfaces, or there's some designs that don't have interfaces. If there's any engagement at all, there's going to be an interface of some type. It might not be digital, but there's still going to be an interface. So interaction design is key. How strong are they when it comes to usability? You want to look at visual design, the prowess there. And if they're engaged in prototypes, that's something that's usually going to be a strength. So you want to be able to evaluate those things as well. Next, you want to grade your findings. Don't just take some notes, write them down, and then depend upon your recall. It's not efficient, as I've listed here. You don't want to just sit and look at what the experience somebody has and rely on our brains. You're going to forget. You want to document your findings. You want to grade them so that eventually you can rate and rank this person. You want to generate rankings. And if you're looking at 5 candidates, you should have a score at the end. You want to make your evaluation systematic. You want to be organized. You want to eliminate bias from what you're doing so that you can make sure that you have the best possible candidate that you're presenting. And there's some reasons for that also later. So we'll share that in a bit. Search for soft skills. Don't just be tied into deliverables. Don't just be tied into the level of experience somebody may have. You want to see how adaptable they are. How well do they communicate? Or, ask for examples of where they demonstrated strong levels of conflict resolution. Argumentation and negotiation are key. Do they have good negotiation skills? Do they know how to validate their recommendations? Do they pick their battles? There's an old saying in the UX world: pick your battles. Don't just try to win every battle, but fight. You want to fight for the user. So sometimes you just have to let certain things go. We've come to learn that, and you want to see where this person is demonstrating that as well. You want to make sure that they have that gravitas mixed with social grace. It's got to be really strong emotionally, and they got to be very tactful, very professional. So you want to see these things. How well do they manage disappointment? Are they patient? Do they have good listening skills? So be on the lookout for soft skills. Additional key skills. Jared Spool mentions things such as sketching, storytelling, critiquing, presenting, facilitating. Are they good at critical thinking? I want to highlight critiquing there. That's really key to any UX team, no matter what kind of work they're doing or where they are, what company it is. They want to have good critical thinking skills. And there's some other notes here, and I will share this with you guys later if you want to have this. I'm sure Tony will have this presentation available. I can share a PDF if you'd like to get it, the links. At any rate, check them for empathy. You want them to give you examples where they have demonstrated empathy, and you want to see how passionate they are about empathy. Very, very important as well. Last 3, you want to evaluate all your candidates for emotional intelligence. This, I cannot stress how critical this is. Does the person exercise sound logic? Do they manage their emotions well? Are they resilient? When they're disappointed, do they bounce back? Are they optimistic? But they're not pie in the sky. They're realistic about their optimistic mindset. Are they constructive at times when they're not comfortable? That's really important. And do they really have a strong sense of introspection? All of these things are key to having a really high EQ, and they will really help your team and help the organization. Here's a key one, especially as your organization is new to UX, relatively new, or just flat out new. You want to make sure that you identify candidates that are good educators, that they have a history of being evangelizing for UX, a history of mentoring people, because these people, it's one thing to have a good UX person. It's another thing to have someone that brings this added value to the table that's going to help to further the organization law or help accomplish the institutionalization of UX. For your company, the educators are the one that are going to get that done. The people that are just doing deliverables and just do standard UX work but don't educate cannot accomplish this. So you want to always highlight people that are educators. And then lastly, make sure that you probe for fashion. Another element, I cannot stress this enough, how critical it is that UX people are passionate. You're going to have a hard time achieving optimal UX if your UX personnel are not passionate about what they do. One element that's not here in the presentation, but I'll mention it, is that strong UX professionals are not order takers. In other words, when someone tells them that they want A, B, and C, the strong UX professional is actually going to assess whether or not A, B, and C is the right thing to actually do, and we'll go to validate that first. And so passion is a major driver there. The UX professional that is an order taker will never validate anything, and that's what one of the things that posers do. They just take orders and they go do it. So you want to make sure the person is passionate, that the person is very founded and logical in their thinking, and those are the types of people that are going to bring more value to your organization. So you want to identify those people. So really want to put square peg in a round hole. I don't think anybody really wants to do that. But the truth of the matter is that it's happening. You don't want to be one of those people. You really don't. So how much you learn about UX and how much you apply principles like the ones I just share with you are going to help you to overcome this scenario. So all that said, let's just have some closing notes here. UX, again, it's approximately 20 years old, a little bit more actually. The world, once dominated by creative agencies, it's now wide open. The corporations are involved in the recruiting, and many of you undoubtedly are recruiting for corporations. So you're new. You have a new seat at this table. There's been an explosion due to this of UX positions, and this has resulted in a shortage of qualified applicants. And the shortage, it hasn't stopped companies from just putting bodies in the position. So you don't want to be someone that's just contributing to the body epidemic. You want to find people that are truly skilled. And by the way, that means that you as a recruiter, depending upon who you are, you may have to fight with regard to how much you're paying. And I do exhort you, there are salary surveys or salary reports that are out there for UX. The massive influx of unqualified people has actually begun to skew the pay scales, and that's going to hurt the organization. So you want to make sure you pay people, get qualified people and pay them accordingly. Don't try to short them because it will create a problem for your company as well as for your own credibility, which I'll mention again in a moment. But the corporate world is engaged position-wise, but they still don't really understand what UX is and how it works. This is another reason to highlight those educators. They're really going to help you to bring extra value to the table and give you things that you didn't even think about when the descriptions were written a lot of times. So you really want to highlight people like that. As a recruiter, as mentioned earlier, you have to strive, this is what I was alluding to, you have to strive to fill these positions. But remember, you got a reputation to uphold. So if you bring those posers in, they're going to eventually be found out. And when the posers are found out, you don't want to have been the source of the poser. You want to bring in genuine UX professionals that have proven backgrounds, that understand what they're doing, and are going to help to take the company to another level and help get that win-win for the users as well as for the company. Those are the ones you want. And remember, this requires understanding the whole. And when you understand the whole, it should help drive you to make sure that you get the right tag to fill that hole. And when we do this, folks, everybody wins. So that is it. I'm just under 30 minutes. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I hope you got a lot out of it. And I hope you're able to get a lot done and get a lot of wins for you and your organization and for those professionals that you represent. Thank you. Follow me on Twitter, connect with me. I share UX information all the time in the social media world. Love to connect with you and wish everyone all the best. Bye.